rolling. Hey, it's Starting Pot with Don Kincaid. And look who I got, boys and girls. Check this out. My voice is a little bit higher than usual, but I'm very excited this evening because I've got on the show to talk to us, the fans, one DTF, Dan Terry. What's up, my man?
Nothing much. I'm happy that you had me on. I've seen your show a few times. I'm a big fan of it, so I'm really excited to answer any questions and talk a little bit.
Oh, wow. That's awesome because I don't know who. I always think my dad and his dog are just the only two that are watching this thing. So I really appreciate you kind of checking out the show. I really dig that. That's awesome.
Well, I was with your dad and his daughter when they were watching it. So
whoa.
Basically just them, yes.
Yeah, okay. That sounds about that. This is going to be a fun one, boys and girls. Now, I said DTF Dan Terry. Now, let me break that down a little bit. DTF stands for Dan Terry Fitness, and we're just going to start the whole thing off with two things. Mm-hmm. First off, it's been a long time since I've seen me some Dan Terry inside that ring. Mm-hmm. You look like a different person with the whole thing going on the face. First off, what the fuck is going on there? Sorry if my lips are a little bit loose, but that's the way we are on the show.
No, I like it. It's great. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not actually DTF Dan Terry anymore.
Wait, what?
No, I'm the American Hammer Dan Terry. I left the fitness stuff behind. I was tired of being a joke. And go ahead, take it in.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe, and it's not the cigarette. You just threw me for a looper there. How come I didn't know about this? And I always watch what Dan Terry's doing. I haven't seen this transition, so we're definitely going to get into that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Sorry, I interrupted with my non-breathing issue. I apologize.
No, it's fine. Take a drag. You'll be all set.
Woo! No, let's not do that. I don't want to die right here. Please continue, sir, about the American Hammer. Is that what it's known as?
What it is. A few months ago, well, I mean, it's if you want me to talk why I stopped being DTF Dan. Yep. Oh, go ahead.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Now you're telling us, the fans, you left the fitness behind. You mm-hmm. felt that you were kind of being taken as a joke within the wrestling world, if you will.
Now, I want to make a quick mention. I'm still taken as a joke within the wrestling world, 100%. But I realized that could be possibly less if I didn't wear purple tearaway pants and a sparkly singlet, which was very nice, by the way. It was not against the sparkly singlet. It just, I realized my pasty white skin might come across better without it.
I've got pasty white skin, so I could absolutely feel you there, my friend.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Because if I go out in the sun for a half hour, I'm gonna burn like that. But it is what it is. When you have pasty skin, you just take it with what you got.
Yeah, at one point you just get to accept it, be proud of it, and keep going. I like the shirt there too. I like that Buff Dad t-shirt.
I did that especially for you. I thought you'd catch on to that. Thank you for
especially for you. I'm wearing the Boston Pro Wrestling Marathon t-shirt. I wanted to get something good going.
Yeah, that's amazing. We'll talk about that. We've got plenty to talk about.
We got a ton of shit to talk about. I
haven't seen you in a couple years. So I know I said let's start with a couple things. We talked about the facial hair a little bit. You threw me for a loop. You've got a transition, an evolution of character. We love talking that on this show. Mm-hmm. Big point on this show. So Dan Terry Fitness is kind of come and gone. We're going to talk about the upcomings and how you became Dan Terry. We kind of do some of the general stuff, just not asked in the general way, because I don't write nothing down. I'm not that bright, and you just follow me. We might go timeline swapping here.
No, it's fine.
So I reached out to Dan Terry, first off, because I haven't seen you in a long time. So why not, since I got this whole Skype thing going on, because right now we've got that whole Kincaid. Kincaid, do you give it a... Never mind. We got this whole thing going on outside. And I figured, what a great time to reach out to Dan Terry and say, hey, what's up, man? And let's get to know one another, because I've seen you perform plenty, but I've never really talked to you out of the ring.
Yeah, it's like the world's going to shit, so let's completely kill it by bringing in Dan Terry. I like that.
Why not? Put the nail in, if you will. So I want to kind of start with the XWA Center because that's where I met Dan Terry.
I love XWA.
That's where I saw the whole thing unfold in front of my eyes. Not the transition because you were Mr. Fitness in there, and I want good fucking times at XWA Center and with Dan Terry. You came out. You had the headband. You had the purple stuff going on. You had the bands, if you will. I think at one time you were kind of stretching the bands. You kind of took that character, the gimmick, if you will. You worked it hard. You came out and you gave us the signals who your character was, if you were a bad guy or a good guy. We cheered or booed with those signals. So let's just dive right into that character because that's the first thing I've ever seen you do. Dan Terry Fitness. Let's just kind of circle around that for a couple minutes and talk to us about the XWA Center because I love the XWA Center. Haven't been there in a while. And Dan Terry Fitness. Talk about a little bit of that.
We'll start with Dan Terry Fitness. So pretty much from it came about just before my first ever match. It was definitely. So my first match was in Everett, Massachusetts for VCW. Jason Rumble used to have his company. It's now up in Machias, Maine. He used to run it out of a building in Everett. So I had only been training for about a few months, and I 100% should not have been having a match at that point. I probably wasn't really ready for it, but it was in front of maybe 10, 12 people, and I think they just needed to fill a spot. So he told me about it, and we're going to have it. At the time, I was actually working at a gym as a personal trainer. Like that was my legitimate job. I worked at a gym training people. So Jay was like, that's going to be a gimmick. You were going to be a personal trainer. I was probably only about maybe 150 or 160 pounds at this time, and I was pretty well cut because I was so skinny. So that was going to be that's where the character came from. The gimmick came from. The name Dan Terry actually came probably it was about maybe I want to say we'll say like 20 minutes, 25 minutes before my first match. I had no name, and they were like, well, come up with something. So I was just coming up with like the stupidest names I could think of. Have you ever watched Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I can't say that I have, sir.
Okay, so just a quick rundown. It's a show about this guy and these two robots. They watch really bad movies, and they make fun of them. In one episode, there's a guy who is just this big muscle meathead, and they're giving him names throughout the movie. So some of the names they gave him were the names I was trying to use. It was like Peck Rock Chest, something like, Flank Beefsteak, stupid things like that.
Yeah, big time jackass names to really kind of put it out there.
But mind you, I was 160 pounds, so those didn't really go well. So just before I'm about to go out, I still had no name. And Jay Rumble grabbed me. Yeah, I still have no name. And Jay Rumble grabbed me. He goes, and I'm going to do my Jay Rumble impression. He goes, Kid, your name is going to be Dan Terry. That way, when fans look up Rob Terry from TNA, they might find you. And that's my terrible Jason Rumble impression. And I love Jay Rumble. Jay Rumble's awesome. In my head, that made a lot of sense. I'm like, oh, when they look up Rob Terry, they'll find Dan Terry. Now, years later, in my head, I'm just kind of like, well, who the hell was looking up Rob Terry? So, but the name stuck, and Dan Terry just kind of continued on using it from there. It's actually kind of funny. You mentioned the whole purple jumpsuit and all of that stuff. For my first match, I had no gear. I had no trunks. I had no boots, nothing. So what I did was I went to, I want to say like Walmart or Kmart before my first match, and I just bought a blue and black jumpsuit and a woman's white tennis hat. And I wore those with a pair of sneakers, and that's what I wrestled in probably for I want to say maybe about a year or so. In
Really?
Yeah, I'm extremely cheap, and I've never. So one of the issues I've always had is I never invested the money that I should have in myself, and I always looked extremely generic. The only time I really ever had gear that I would say looked decent was the singlet that I wore with the whole DTF stuff on it. But other than that, I was always, creator wrestler, shitbag, generic looking guy, which is a major flaw that I've always had. But that's how the Dan Terry, gimmick and the trainer stuff started.
I would never call you a shitbag because I only weigh 35 pounds. There's a big weight difference there. I would never. Mr. SOG has labeled that on me. I know you're aware of one Mr. SOG, Ronnie Ribs.
Yeah, I love Ronnie.
Oh, yeah. He calls me. I say I'm built like a candle, but he added upon it and said that I only weigh about 35 pounds, which really isn't that far from the truth. So you're telling us, the fans, that's your very first gimmick. You didn't have no kooky like Christmas creature like Kane did at the beginning. So Dan Terry Fitness, that was like coming right out of the barrel, just like that.
It was there. I've always done kind of a fitness thing with my gimmick. Maybe I think I never changed it, probably just because I was in a comfort zone and I was there. Excuse me. So I just never really, got out of it. It evolved to the DTF stuff, but there was always an aspect of the fitness to it. I always did the double bicep pose, which is really the only thing I know. And everything kind of worked around that. So that's really, there's been a little bit of evolution on it, but, it's been a real straight line.
But it only takes little things like, just to add, it could be a changing of your attire. It could be adding a headband where you didn't wear a headband. It could be bringing out a prop. Any of those little things is part of the evolution of the character. And that's why I love talking about that.
And it came about really as a joke. I had been doing the DTF stuff for a while, and just the fitnessy guy stuff for a while, but there was nothing to it. I was really just the guy who had a decent build, and luckily enough, on a lot of the shows I wrestled on, everyone else looks like shit. So, it's kind of true, and not being a dick, but at best I have an average build compared to guys who weigh 130 pounds and look like you. But
exactly. And there's plenty of guys that are built like me that have been trying and or doing the whole thing.
Definitely. But that's just me shitting on people. I'm trying to bury myself as we go along. It came about, the DTF stuff started as a joke with Tim Lennox, who is a hero. He's working at Stop and Shop. And I told him I'd get that in there for him. And I don't know if you know Paul Glantz. Paul Glantz he's a camera guy, actually. He does camera, I believe, for Beyond, or he used to. And he knows wrestling really, really well. You might recognize if you saw him, but he's not a guy he doesn't wrestle, but he knows wrestling really well. He was the one who was like, listen, I wanted to have it be kind of like a lot of sexual innuendos in the gimmick, because for whatever reason, I thought that would work. And he was like, oh, you should be DTF. It sounds like, you know what DTF stands for. And he goes, but you could be Dan Terry Fit. And at first I was like, haha, that's kind of funny. But then I was like, oh, maybe that could be kind of interesting. And we kept fooling around and joking with it. And eventually I had a purple singlet that I went back to wearing. And then I got a pair of sweatpants that I started wearing. And then one day, Tim Lennox, who's a hero from Stop and Shop, we went to did I lose you?
I apologize.
No.
Nobody ever calls me. Hold on. Let me switch. Can you hear me, sir?
Can I hear you?
Yeah.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. I got a call. It must have been spam. Who the fuck is going to call me? It had to be spam and not in a can. So I'm sorry for the interruption.
No worries. I was just talking about how big of a hero Tim Lennox is. Tim Lennox is a hero, and that should be known. But he and I went to the Garment District in Boston, and I bought a bunch of they had wristbands and headbands, and I bought a bunch of those. They just so happened to have purple, and that's kind of how things came together. And eventually I had stuff put on the singlet, and the whole kind of gimmick, where I hit people with my butt, really started to kind of come together.
Now, tell us, the fans, when you have this whole gimmick going, what are you trying to portray? A good guy, a face, or a bad guy, or a heel, if you will? Because you talked a little bit of the sleaze trying to be put in there. To me, when you talk sleaze, that kind of goes towards the heel side of the program, if you will.
So I had always worked as a heel, from the beginning up until when I started doing the DTF stuff. I had only worked as a heel. There have been a few times I tried working as a babyface, and it didn't work for me. And still today, my babyface work isn't very strong. I'm not very good at it. Maybe, I don't know if I'm just uncomfortable in the role, or I just haven't figured out how to do it. That's just, it's not strong work. Not that my heel work is all that strong itself, but I feel like it's a little bit stronger than the babyface. And so definitely, I thought it could only work as a heel, because I'd be going out there telling people they're fat, or telling people that, I look better than them. All of the kind of, cheap heat stuff that you can get, anyone can really do. That's what I did. It's what I was doing, it was what I knew how to do. As a babyface, I wanted to do comedy wrestling, was what I really wanted to do. That was my goal. I realized that I wasn't that amazing in the ring as a wrestler. I like to think I'm decent to an average local guy, and I realized, hey, I want to do funny things. I like Santino Marella, was a guy who I really liked. Things like that. And I wanted to be, Santino Marella, watching him, he got great reactions. He did some really interesting stuff. And, he didn't do a whole lot. He was a comedy gimmick. And, understandably, there's a ceiling, there's a limit to how high you can go with that. I understood completely when I started doing it that it was never going to take me to the very top. I was never going to be a company's champion or, the top guy doing it. But I wanted to have fun, because I wasn't having fun with wrestling when I started doing it.
I gotcha. And if you're not having fun, it almost makes you just want to walk away, because it's and I always state this on this show, wrestling, to me personally, I'm not a wrestler, I'm not a manager or part of that world. But from a fan's perspective, you could take all of the sports you want to look at. For me personally, I feel that wrestling is a couple things: the most unique sport, or whatever you want to call it, in the entire world. Yeah. And secondly, I think that it's one of the hardest things to accomplish, because you're your own brand, you're your own salesman. You have to keep the whole package fit. If you will, you have to keep the upstairs going. You've got to keep the attire. You have to know acting. You have to know acrobatics to a degree. There's so many, and we could keep going on and on. I feel, again, that wrestling is probably one of the hardest things to accomplish in the entire universe as a sport, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely. I think that, I mean, trying to think whether it's a sport or a form of entertainment.
That's why I do use the word sport, and I know it's not used. Well, I mean, you guys and girls are athletes. Oh yeah, it is what it is.
You need to have a certain level of athleticism in order to wrestle. I mean, at the Bell Time Club, I saw a lot of kids come in who had never played a sport in their lives. You know, they've never did much athletic stuff in their life. They never worked out. They mostly just played video games all day long. And, you know, those guys didn't really last very long. They would come in, they'd realize, oh, I've got to run. Oh, you know, I can't do a Stone Cold Stunner right now. I've got to do this and this and this. And, well, it's, you know, people would quit because they didn't fully understand what it was. And I think no one really does when they start wrestling. I know I certainly didn't. So, I mean, definitely you need to have that some sort of athletic ability. And also, you know, you need to have, like you said, it's a mind game as well. I think that's where the entertainment form comes in, because you have to, I don't know how to explain that well, because I'm not very entertaining, but you need to like have the ability to act. You need to really be able to put on a performance that people are going to connect to. And you have to be able to combine the athletic side and the performance side. And there's definitely guys in the area that do a fantastic job of that. And then there are other guys, you know, who don't and just kind of do their own shit. So it's
throughout our, where are we? We're only at about 20 minutes, but I have noticed, and I'm going to point out, you kind of come down on yourself for your abilities and your character work and such. Is that is that something you take with you normally? Because I find you entertaining, my friend. And I'm going to use a great example. We're at the XWA Center, and I used to hang out with a bunch of college kids, and we were the Sully section, if you will. What a fantastic fucking time with those guys. Oh, my God. That was great. Yep. College kids taking an old timer like me, and I'm almost 50 fucking years old, and they're taking me and, hey, you want to do this thing with us? And I'm like, fuck yeah. So my point being is, one of them specifically, Josh, he would always yell loud and proud. He loved him some DTF. What core strength by DTF? He would always yell that, and I take that with me whenever I would see you, and I would try to project that. If he wasn't around, I would try to project that myself. Oh, well, so I feel.
Well, that's something I definitely appreciate. Anytime I hear that someone likes watching what I do, or they've enjoyed something I've done, that makes me feel really, really good. You know, I think everyone enjoys that. I think I like to try to be realistic, I guess. And I don't like to be, because there's a lot of guys in the area who I feel, you know, aren't very good, but they lack the self-awareness to know that they suck. And I'm not going to name anyone, because that would just be Vern Vicalo. That would be like a stupid thing to do. But like,
I'm sorry, I fell off my chair for a second. Holy shit! Wow. Sorry about that.
You know what they say about Vern Vicalo? When you go to see a show of Vern Vicalo, you buy the whole seat, but you only need the edge. It's, but like but I mean, I think there's a lot of guys who definitely, you know, they go out there, they have a match that's, you know, it's just doing moves and there's nothing to it. Then they come back and they hug, they kiss, you know, they high five, and it's the greatest match ever. And one of the stories I have is, you know, and a lot of people will lie to you in wrestling. I mean, I've seen that firsthand. I know that I've lied to people when they've said
a lot of yes men, if you will.
Oh yes, I was at an NECW show one time, and a friend of mine was having a match, and I was sitting there with somebody. I obviously won't say who it is. I'm not even joking this time. I'm not gonna say who it is. But like, you know, we're sitting there watching my friend's match, and the guy is just shitting on it. He's like, oh, he goes, brother, this is terrible. This is such a bad match. Why would he do that? Look at that. That sucked. That wasn't very good. This is bad. Oh God, just take it home. You know, all that stuff. And then, you know, the guys came back, and one of them goes up to this guy and they go, hey, how was the match? And he goes, I loved it. Amazing. It was really good. You did this and it was good. And you know, the kid was happy. He was like, oh, you know, this is great. I just had a good match. Meanwhile, you know, he just shit in the match. So that's something I think that seeing so much of that kind of made me realize, you can put yourself over all day long, but in reality, I mean, if any of us were all that amazing, we wouldn't be wrestling once a month in front of 15
you'd all
people.
you'd all have the contracts on the bigger platforms, if you will. I want to kind of touch on that, what you just spoke of. I like when the men and women that I speak to, they say, don't give me all the goo goo gaga bullshit. Sit down with me. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what you think I could have done better, or tell me how I came through the curtain. Did I present myself, good enough to connect with the fans and stuff? Now, as a wrestler, wouldn't you rather hear the true, honest feedback from your peers than all of that, hey, good job, guy?
No, I'd rather have people tell me I did great, because if they tell me I did bad, I'm going to want to kill myself. I mean, one of the worst feelings is, driving home after a show knowing you just had a shitty match. I mean, obviously, we all need to have someone tell us, hey, Dan, that wasn't very good. This was bad. This made no sense. Why would you do this? But, that's how you get better, is being told that. But in reality, no, everybody wants to be told how amazing they are. Everyone wants to be, everyone wants to, have someone who doesn't know anything about wrestling tell another person who doesn't know anything about wrestling how great their wrestling is. It's just,
Well, it's kind of the same thing with me, to be honest with you.
Oh, no, you're great. Don't worry about it. You're amazing.
I really got to put it out there, though, because when the men and women come up to me and say, hey, how did you like the match? I'm there as a fan. I'm popping like an MFer. I'm having a great time as a fan. I'm not sitting there breaking it down in my head as it's going on, going, oh my God, Dan Terry, what the fuck was that? I'm not saying that stuff to myself because I'm there as a fan and I'm enjoying it. So in all honesty, and I love every single woman, man and woman that I talk to, because we have great relationships out there in the wrestling industry. My only reaction is I had a fucking blast. Other than that, I don't know what to say.
Well, one thing that gets talked about a lot is guys wrestling for themselves and wrestling for the crowd. And despite what a lot of people will tell you, we all wrestle for ourselves. We all do it, whether it's to make ourselves feel good, or to, we always dreamed of making it to the WWE, but we realize that we're 5'9" or 5'10", 150 pounds, and it's not going to happen. Or we're trying to validate why we're staying away from our girlfriends and wives and families all weekend, and they hate us because we're, out screwing around in spandex trunks. We want to be told, hey, you're not wasting your time doing this. This is what it should be. And I think if another wrestler tells me, hey, Dan, that was really good, I like that. That sounds great. If a fan tells me, hey, I really like what you did, that was awesome, that's really great. I think if someone who doesn't watch wrestling and doesn't care for wrestling tells you, hey, that's really good, then you've done something well.
Gotcha,
because
man. Different perspectives.
Yes, because what wrestling fans like and what wrestlers like and what someone who doesn't care about wrestling at all likes are different things. Like, I'll bring up an example. My wife hates wrestling. I brought her to shows. She goes, this is dumb. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And I'll tell her, was this cool? Was this funny? Or what did you think of this? And, most of the time she goes, I didn't really care. But I do like that, because if she doesn't care, I'm not going to bring in someone who already, how am I? They don't care. I would like to be able to do something for someone who doesn't like wrestling, to be able to say, oh, hey, that was cool. Something you could bring up, a guy like, Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock or Hulk Hogan. Obviously, those are names who are way out of my league, and I'm not trying to compare myself to them. But if you go back to 1998 or 1999, you had people that didn't care about wrestling at all, but they knew who Stone Cold Steve Austin was. They knew that, hey, that guy's cool, man. Look at him. He's going out there and doing this. They may not have been wrestling fans, but now, you made them, or he made them at least a fan of him or a fan of wrestling. And I feel like that's something that's important. Having another wrestler tell you, yeah, man, that was great. It's like, okay, thanks, dude. That's cool. We pretty much had the same match because, that's what everyone does. We all just do the same outline, so thanks for liking it. If someone who's a fan, I'm like, oh great, man, a fan liked it, great. The fan's gonna come back to the next show, and the fan's gonna continue to support us, whether it's through buying T-shirts or pictures, or like you do, you buy a ticket and you make noise and you interact. That's amazing. That's what we want. Or you can have someone who's not a fan of wrestling suddenly say, oh man, I want to see more of that. Maybe this could be something I like. So as I'm rambling, I think those are just 3 levels that I would put it at.
No, that gives us the fans different perspectives from a guy who works inside that ring, who has a different perspective than we do, and that's why I like to talk these kind of subjects.
And you brought up XWA as well. XWA actually played a huge role in the DTF character, a gimmick. If you want to get into that, we can talk about that a little bit. I know you mentioned XWA.
Yeah, because we love not to only lift the talent that we speak of, but we might even sprinkle a couple more talent names that you have maybe been associated with, or the companies that you've associated yourself with.
And if you want
those promotions up as well.
If you want to bring up any names, and I can shit on them if you want, or if you want to bring up places, I can try to put them over so I can try to simp my way into getting on a show. Like, that's fine with me. But XWA, so the first XWA was one of the places where Bo Douglas really put it into us that we should start trying to get to. He goes, this is a great company. They bring a lot of big names. My first ever time I did XWA, I went down to help out with the ring. And Mike Antonucci and Jose Perez threw me in a battle royal. And it was pretty much, they said, run into the ring. Warbad Hansen's going to be in there. Bump for him. He had just been hitting guys. My music played. I ran into the ring. And he just kicked me in the face. So I was like, oh, cool. I just got to work for XWA. And that was it. Also on that show, Rikishi was on that show, which is really cool. A fun Rikishi story is his music played and nobody could find Rikishi. Oh, his music was just playing and everyone's like, yeah, it's Rikishi. He's going to come out. And they kept playing his music. And he just wasn't coming to the ring. And finally, where's Rikishi? And he started coming through. And I was in the ring at the time. Or maybe I was about to get the ring. One of them, whatever. And Rikishi, I think it was in the ring already. And Rikishi finally came out. And he's like, yeah. And everyone's losing their shit. And it was a battle royal. So before this, it was a battle royal. You don't go down. You stay up. Everyone's hitting each other, selling. All of a sudden, Rikishi gets in the ring, and suddenly guys start bumping all over the place. if you turned, the guys would bump and they'd automatically sell to the corner. Boom! Everyone was trying to sell to the corner because they wanted to take the stink face. They're like, oh man, this is us, but they're gonna see this, and this is gonna be our moment. So he already had who he was gonna do it to, so he didn't care about anyone else doing it. But guys would take a punch and they'd go down and just lay in the corner like that for 5 minutes. And finally, Rikishi did the stink face, and he called for the microphone, and they gave him the microphone, and he goes, I'm too old and I'm too fat to go over the top rope. And then he just puts it down and he leaves to the middle. And I was like, that's awesome. I would love to do that someday.
He threw himself out of the battle royal?
No, he didn't throw himself out. He just went out the middle, stepped down, and that was it. I'm like, that's awesome. That's what I want to do someday.
Yeah. Hey, he's Rikishi. He can do that. And like you said, yeah, maybe I would love to do that because of what he brings to the table. When you're got that kind of stature, you don't have to work your ass.
Nope.
Work your ass off. You see what I did there? You don't.
But
you don't.
But for XWA, the Thursday night throwdowns were actually huge.
Love them.
Great times. I had heard about it, and it was Jose Perez had contacted me about them, And he's like, hey, we're going to start doing shows on Thursday nights. There's going to be a lot of good people coming down. We'd love to have you if you're interested. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to come down. It could be fun. And I didn't know what to expect. And when I left work and I drove down to West Warwick, whatever, for the shows, it's an amazing setup. I mean, it looks like it's a television quality, at least as far as I could tell, not knowing anything about television. Quality setup with great lighting, great locker room. All the people down there were very cool. I got to work Scott Lederer for I think 5 weeks in a row, and I wanted to kill myself after the second week because they were all just awful matches. I don't know if you know Scott Lederer or not, but yeah. That was it.
I know Scott. I know Scott Lederer.
You just pretty much did all 5 of my matches, so it was amazing. So a story about that. So I think we were like in match 3 of 5 for whatever reason. So we should have had a clear idea what was going on with each other at this point. We had worked with each other in the past, but it's Scott Lederer. So we're having the match, and it was a very simple, basic thing. I said to him, it was going to be whatever. I'm going to come off the ropes. I'm going to do a big flying shoulder tackle. You bump. I'm going to do some push-ups. I'll pop up. So we did all the stuff. I hit the ropes with a big flying shoulder tackle. And for whatever reason, he decides to drop down and completely get out of the way of the shoulder tackle. And I just landed. And it was probably the nicest face bump I've ever taken in my life. But he gets up. He's like, "Oh man, what do we do now, man? What do we do now?"
Listen to you. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I'm sorry.
And I was like, I fucking hate you. Just go to the heat. And he's like, no, man, no, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna get you back on top, man. And I'm like, oh my God, no, just go to the heat. And God damn it, wouldn't you know it? We worked our asses off to get things back on track, but it still sucked. It was awful. It was terrible. We did not get things back on track. And then we did 2 more matches 2 weeks in a row with each other. But overall, XWA Thursday night was a great experience. I mean, I just shit on Scott Lederer because I can. But it was
Go ahead.
But I got to work with a lot of people that I never would have had an opportunity to work with down there. And, it was a great place to get a lot of really good footage as well, because it looks fantastic down there. And it was a fun time. I mean, I stopped going down for no reason. It wasn't like there's no personal reason I stopped going down. It was just on a Thursday night after work, getting down there was just, not a doable thing anymore.
That's kind of where I was at with the XWA, because when I very first went, the very first night that I went with my dad, we'd never been here, had no clue where the door was because of the way the setup was. It's raining like a MFer out there. And I find my way where the door was. So I get my dad, and I love this part of the story because it's only 6:30. Okay.
Oh,
so me and Dad walk inside.
4 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Now it's 6:30. I walk in the fucking place like I know what I'm doing. I know everybody in the place, and I walk in and I see Nick Delta before he became Nick Delta. Very first guy. Yeah. And I go, hey, I was told that I had a couple of seats reserved for me. He goes, the place is fucking empty. Pick a seat. Just like that. And that was my first time of entering the XWA. But my point being is they had a double cage match there that night.
Oh, cool.
We had the likes of Sully was in a cage match, and AR, Adrenaline Rush, versus the Minutemen. Holy shit, that was amazing.
Cool match.
That was very cool. So, as a fan, I latched right onto that XWA center, and I went every single Thursday, plus the Saturdays when they had their bigger shows, for 6 months straight. Never missed a show. and I was there like clockwork. But I live 2 fucking hours away, my man.
That's dedication. I never did the Saturday shows. I was never good enough for those. But I did the Thursday. I did the Thursday shows where everyone.
But that kind of ties in what you're saying is it started taking a toll on me as a fan of getting out of work, picking up my dad, taking that 2-hour ride, having a blast, taking another 2-hour ride back home, getting home at like 1 o'clock, and I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a ride, especially getting down there with traffic and everything like that. But definitely, I think that if you're someone who is new to wrestling, or you've gotten the okay from your trainer to go work matches, I would 100% tell people get in contact with Jose or Mike and let them know, hey, I'm looking for experience, because that's a fantastic place to gain experience. You'll either be working with another student from XWA, in which case I know Jose watches the matches and he always gives feedback, or you'll get to work with, someone who is more experienced, and then you're still going to get some feedback, and you're working with someone who has an idea of what they're doing. So, or you might end up working Scott Leder, in which case you'll probably just want to quit wrestling. There's a huge, you never know what you're going to get down there, but it's definitely a place that I would suggest that people go to. I would definitely suggest to people.
Fantastic names, wrestlers that come in and out of the XWA Center besides their homegrown students that they have there. But I would like to add on to what you just said. Not only that, but they also have, that facility is also called the Kingdom Training Facility. Yep. And still actively you have the likes of Matt Taven. He is at the helm of all of that. Matt Taven. It used to be Mike Bennett. But then Mike Bennett kind of stepped away and did his thing with the WWE. But actively still, you have Matt Taven, Vinny Marsaglia, and TK O'Ryan that are still going there and teaching those great students that want to learn from some of the best. And son of a bitch, if they're not learning from some of the best.
Yeah, those are 3 guys who know their stuff. I mean, you mentioned Mike Bennett. Also, I know Maria would be down there sometimes. And there were a few times when she'd be in the locker room. And she knows a lot about wrestling, which makes sense because she was with the WWE or whatever, the WWF for years. So she definitely knows wrestling well. Mike Bennett's a guy who's been around for a long time, and he knows wrestling extremely well. Who was it? TK O'Reilly or Orion? Orion, yeah. TK, I should know his name, but I'm a piece of shit, so I don't. Right? Who is he? He only works for Ring of Honor, right? Yeah. Marsaglia and Matt Taven are 3 guys who have a ton of experience, and they've worked at extremely high levels. I think is it Vinny Marsaglia or Taven? Yes. That's the champion of Ring of Honor. He was.
Well, Matt Taven was the champion, but also the Kingdom as a collective, they were the 3-man tag champs there. Yeah.
So definitely. I mean, there's a lot of schools in New England, probably more schools than there should be. And I would definitely say that if you go down there, you're probably in the hands of, some of the better guys in the area. I don't know them. I've never been down there for class. I don't know, Taven or Marsaglia or TK. I've met them briefly, but I don't know them. But I would definitely, if someone asked me, I would say that'd be a place to go.
Absolutely. They do a fantastic job over there. Not only in ring, but they get that respect of the wrestling etiquette, everything, all aspects. Those guys are really on top of their game over there. But I want to shoot back to Dan Terry and talk about this transition now. I've been holding my tongue and waiting because I had so much to talk about. Yeah. But you've told us, the fans, you're not Dan Terry Fitness anymore.
Nope.
You are the American Hammer, Dan Terry. Is that correct?
That is what it is now. Yep.
Okay, now talk to us about this evolution of character, because it went from a guy who's doing fitness, kind of kooky, if you will. Now we've got the American Hammer. Sounds a bit more serious, a little bit more impactful, if you will, just the name alone. Talk to us about the differences and why you transitioned. And did you come up with this character on your own?
Well, I didn't want to. So I mentioned that how doing a gimmick that was all comedy and funny stuff had a limit to how far it could go. You were only going to get so far with that before it got old, or before people got tired of seeing it, or you're only going to go, you weren't going to be very high with it. And I just wanted to change it. This was just, I threw it together. I was myself personally, I'm a very conservative person. Politically, that's just the way I lean. I know there's been a lot of rumors going around in New England about me. I know that. Yeah, there's been some stuff, and people believe what they hear, and it's whatever. And I wanted to try to make a gimmick out of that. I said, we live in a time right now that's very, like politically charged, obviously. And, we're in New England, which is a very left-leaning, liberal state. And that's not who I am, what I'm about. So I said, that could be a good way to maybe try to get myself across a little bit, to stand out, and to just, get some very cheap heat, possibly. And, it's still something I'm obviously figuring out.
Okay.
I'm still trying to get it across and work on it. It's definitely not a finished product yet, and I need to work on it a whole lot more before I can really say what it is and what direction I want it to go in.
Before this whole mess happened with the COVID, how long were you able to work the character as the transition from fitness to American Hammer?
Only a few months. For my own reasons, I've cut down on the number of places that I work. Okay. I'm only doing a few places here and there right now. A lot of that, we can talk about reasons why. But I'm only really right now. I'm only doing NCW, and I've had offers to do other places, but I have no interest. And there were places where I would have loved to have been, but they had no interest. So I decided to meet in the middle, and just be at a place where I'm with people that I like and people that I want to be around. So
since you kind of put it, go ahead.
So that does make it a bit harder to develop what I want to do, because there's such a limited amount of time that I can do things. I mean, obviously I could put in more work outside doing promos and things like that, which is something that I think everybody should do. Obviously I haven't, so I can't really tell someone to do it. But that's just what it is. So to answer your question, it's been a few months, but not long enough to really figure it out.
Especially not being able to get the reps in, if you will, to really evolve and kind of see, I'm going to try this, see where it goes with the fans. I'm going to try this. And maybe it's not always the fans, though. Sometimes you're feeling, this just isn't working for me. I'm going to take that out, and I'll move on and do something else. But you did mention that you're kind of only at one promotion. And as a fan, I'm very intrigued, without getting too crazy, too detailed, if you will. Give us a kind of an abbreviated version of what's going on with Dan Terry, and why are you only doing the NCW right now?
I don't know. I'm getting older. I haven't had really much success in wrestling. I want to try other things. I got married. And I realized, I didn't want to drive hours to, say, New York to wrestle. I didn't want to spend my whole weekends, here or there wrestling. I wanted to do. So the story is pretty much what happened was there was a time, sometime last year, when I had about 3 weeks without any shows. And one of the things that I always liked was I made sure that I always wrestled once to twice a weekend. I always tried to make sure that I always had at least one show, preferably 2 a weekend. And I would message people, show up to shows, do what I could just to get on a show, whether it be a fatal 4-way match, something that I wasn't going to get anything out of. I just wanted to do it because that's how I validated myself. I was like, if I'm not wrestling, then what am I doing? And there was like I said, about a 3-week period when I had no shows. And going into it, I was like fuck, I got, what am I going to do? There's nothing to do this weekend. And by the end of the 3 weeks, I was like, oh, this is great. I was like, I'm not wrestling. This is really fun. And that went to, oh, I got to wrestle this weekend. I don't really want to wrestle this weekend. To, oh man, I got to drive 7 hours this weekend to go to New York. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, I have more fun staying at home. I can do more staying at home. So I realized, I told a few places, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not available for the next show. Or, hey, thank you, but I can't make it. I've got another, engagement for the next show or something else that day. And the reason I stuck with NCW is because that's where my friends are. I like NCW. NCW is a full-on cult. Everybody drinks the juice at NCW. No, yeah, definitely, yeah. They pour it in, you drink it, and there's a reason why NCW is easily the 11th best company in New England, and we work hard to keep it as the 11th best company in New England.
For the fans that don't know, what does the NCW stand for, and where are they located?
NCW is Northeast Championship Wrestling, and they wrestle out of Dedham.
Oh, that's why I haven't been up there. That's a fucking haul for this kid.
Yeah, for you that might, but NCW is a great time. If you enjoy XWA, a lot of those guys also work for NCW. Mm-hmm. It's a fun time. I mean, yeah, I enjoy it. It's people I like are there, and people I want to be around are there. So I cover up nobody wanting me to wrestle on their shows by saying I just wrestle for NCW because I want to.
Sitting here through this interview, you're reminding me of a smaller size Sully right now. It's kind of fucking with my head. Yeah, because Sully, he's got that, no hair thing going. He used to have long, beautiful locks.
He did.
You kind of throwing me a little Sully action here, and I love me some Sully, so I keep picturing Sully, and I apologize.
Sully's a really cool dude. I like Sully a lot. Sully is probably one of the coolest guys I've met in wrestling. I almost shit my pants when he told me he was like 25 years old. I said to him, I was like, you're one of the roughest looking 25-year-olds I've ever seen in my life. But he's a great dude. I like Sully a lot.
He's an older spirit, if you will.
Yes, yeah. He's definitely been reincarnated a few times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It just shows, but Sully's super cool.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, he runs a fantastic promotion. Yeah. It started off as Live Prov, but it's changed over to Wrestle Party. No. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I did some of his original shows.
Okay.
So a funny, so do you know Beefcake?
Oh, I do. I had him on the show.
Beefcake's super cool. So he and I were supposed to have like a best of 3 series there.
Oh.
Yeah. And they were all matches that I stole from Joey Eastman. Do you know Joey Eastman?
I do.
Yeah. So Joe Eastman and I rode up to a Limitless show one time because I was told that if I gave Joe Eastman a ride, I'd get on the show. But when we got there was no spot for me on the show. So, it happens. But I got to ride with Joe Eastman, and Joe Eastman's a super funny guy, and I really I loved riding with him. And he was telling me about some matches that he ran. So I decided to steal those because I'm uncreative, and I pitched them to Sully. And the 3 matches were going to be a false count somewhere match, where the rules were the crowd knew so you could only pin your opponent in one spot in the building.
Oh, really? Really?
But we didn't know where that one spot was. Only the crowd knew. So the crowd and the referee knew, and they would be like, "Oh, hot or cold, hot or cold." The other one was going to be an almost empty arena match.
Oh,
where we were going to have one person in there watching us, and then the other match was going to be a first man standing match, where these are all made up by, as far as I know, these are all made up by Joey Eastman. And if you, I don't know Joey Eastman very well, but every time I've spoken to Joey Eastman, he's been very cool to me. He's a really funny guy, and he's someone who knows wrestling really, really well. And he just had these ideas. And I was like, shit, those are really funny. So I went to Sully, and Sully liked them. So the only match we ended up doing was the Falls Count Somewhere match. And what ended up happening in the match was a woman threw beer on me. So I grabbed the beer cup from her and I threw it back in her face. And I was ready to hit her because she just threw beer at me, but I managed not to do it because I'm a pussy who doesn't want to really fight anybody. And even if it's like a girl. And, we had the match. And afterwards, Sully was like, hey, man, they said you dumped beer on a girl. I was like, yeah, but I had it on tape. I had the whole match videotaped, so it wasn't we saw what happened, but that was the only match we ever did. I have been back down there since. I did his show at the bar, the outdoor bar. It looks like a trailer park. Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes back. I brought my wife to that show. And like I said, my wife hates wrestling, but she loved that place. She loved the atmosphere. She said the matches were fun because they were different. And, it was she enjoyed it.
Yeah, very different. He brings as much creativity as you can bring to the table. He's all about it. Not only that, but there are some crazy characters there because, and I always use Isana as an example because she told a story on here.
I wouldn't know. She's got me blocked on Facebook and Twitter. So I wouldn't know. She might. I'm sure she said some good stuff. I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Oh, I'm sorry to bring up bad vibes. But my point.
In person. So in person, I think Liz is great, and I like talking to Liz in person. But I think online she's terrible. I can't. And I've tried. And everyone is. We're all geniuses, and we all know exactly what's being talked about. And even though none of us have a clue, but yeah. So in person, I think Liz is great, and I like talking to Liz in person. But online, she's literally one of the worst human beings in the entire world. And I'm sure there's people that say the same thing about me because I say and share things online that's terrible. But yeah.
Now, she was talking about how she came as a black cat, and Buff Dad, he had a catnip bag on a stick and a string to kind of get her away from whatever situation, if you will, in the ring. So at the wrestle party, my point being is that they really bring the characters to the table down at the black box and Ogies or whatever it's called over there.
They did that thing with Bullet where he was the pizza guy, and it's crazy how whenever they pull a fan out of the crowd to wrestle, it's always the only one in the crowd who's trained to wrestle. It's really a crazy thing how, and it's crazy how when they ordered the pizza company sent the only guy who was trained to wrestle in their Ford. It's nuts.
That is very odd. Now that you point that out, sir.
That's like I did a show in Maine years ago, and I ended up wrestling a kid named the Portuguese Man of Mystery, and they had me pull him out of the crowd, and during the match he was like, "I'm not a fan. I'm actually a wrestler," and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, this is, what are the odds? Oh my god, what are the odds I would pull the wrestler out of the crowd? This is insane to me. Oh, how did that happen?
Before we do kind of bring this down to a tail end, because what I like to do, there's no time limit or any of that on the show. But what I like to do is I kind of like to do about an hour-ish, give or take, because then hopefully in the future we could get a sequel or a follow-up, if you will, with Dan Terry, because there's so much more to talk about. We can't get you guys and girls' career all in one sitting.
With me, you could.
Yeah.
And honestly, with most people in New England, you could. There's very little need for a sequel with most people.
Well, I want to see what the fuck American Hammer is up to down the road when we get back and see what the hell's going on there. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd like to touch upon a topic that you were speaking of earlier. Mm-hmm. we were saying how you're mainly at NCW for specific reasons. You found that you were missing the sacrifices that it takes to become a wrestler, staying away from the fam, not being able to go to functions with the children or the parents or the spouse. No matter what it is, these sacrifices are done with the sole purpose of becoming a wrestler on that huge big stage. The dream is alive, no matter what your run is. That dream is always alive of becoming a wrestler on that bigger platform. So you make these sacrifices to do such. Now, in the meantime, like you've said, you piss off your fam, and things aren't always peaches and cream trying to accomplish becoming a wrestler. Yeah. So with my rambling, the question is, with all of that set aside, and you're solely kind of working at NCW right now, do you feel at this part of your career you're most comfortable and having some of the most fun? Because if you're not having fun doing these things, then we don't succeed and such. Do you find yourself at a comfortable point in your career doing what you've done personally for yourself?
I mean, I'm comfortable where I'm at. Yeah. I mean, I realize that I'm not going any further than where I'm at right now. I have no real desire. I mean, obviously, if like a really big company for whatever reason called me and said, hey, or messaged me and like, hey, we'd like to use you, I'd probably go. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I wouldn't, but they're not. So, so I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at now. I mean, the whole reason why I'm not doing as much as I was because I wasn't really having fun doing it. And I mean, if I had the choice of, staying at home or going out, to a lot of these places, I feel like I would get more out of staying home than saying, oh, I'm going to go drive, this far for a 5-minute match that I'm probably going to hate. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to cut that out and stay home and do whatever there. But I mean, the reason I stuck at NCW is because, that's where my friends are and that's where the people who I want to see are. So that's when I'm there, I'm usually happy. But as far as other places, I mean, towards the end, when I was still at other places, I would, as soon as my match was done, I would leave. I would, if I was the first match, I'd be out of there by the time the second match ended. So
now, I correlate music with wrestling a lot on this show. I was a guitar player. I got all my shit in the corner over here. I've got like 2 half stacks, 2 heads, 5 different fucking guitars. I've got a bass. I have an 09 ESP Thunderbird that I bought from Dave Cole.
That's cool.
That's over in the corner. So I've kind of taken music and put it to the side because it got to a point for me personally, I wasn't finding it fun. I love the live stage, but with everything that it took to make that show happen, a lot fell on my shoulders. I had to wear many hats. So I felt that it wasn't fun for me, and I kind of put it to the side, and I picked up wrestling. So I can feel what you're talking about, my friend.
Yeah, when I was a kid, like I got a similar thing. From the time I was young up until college, I played the skin flute, and I thought I was really good at it. Yeah, and I'm actually, I'm considering picking it back up again soon.
Wow.
So I definitely want to, get back into playing that and having a good time with it.
That skin flute, you never know. You could get into like the Boston Op, if you will, the orchestra setting, because hey, a good friend skin flute player is hard to find, my friend.
Yeah, it's really tight. Do what you can, and I'm looking to pick it back up. I started it when I was young. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, definitely. But could be music.
Practice makes perfect.
I was told I was good at it, so just put some practice in.
Oh my God, you have cracked me up from minute 1 to minute none. Oh my God,
awesome.
I have loved sitting here and speaking to one Dan Terry because I've never got to know one Mr. Terry before. It was fan outside the ring, wrestler in the ring. He goes and does his thing. And we've never got a chance to talk outside the ring. So for me personally, I found this a very pleasurable experience. And
awesome.
I thank you so much for sitting down and having a lot of fun. I laughed a lot. I probably looked like an idiot.
No, I probably looked like an idiot too, just being a jerk. But no, I appreciate you having me on, and I'd love to come back on again, and I really want to bury myself and make it so that no place will ever use me again, and maybe talk some shit about people, like Vern Vicalo, who beat the shit, and anyone who. No, I'm actually serious. I don't like if you use him on a show, I don't want to. I've talked to NCW. I think he's the worst. But we can talk. We'll bury some people and we'll have a good time with it.
Wow. I had a hell of a fucking time on this soiree. I can't even imagine what the next one would be like.
Let me know when you want to do
it. Woo. Man, we have had a fantastic time here with one Dan Terry. I always thought he was still that Dan Terry Fitness, but he threw me for a loop, and he talked about the American Hammer. Oh, before I do let you go, I'm kind of curious on the attire, because now I'm sure it's not stretchy bands and headbands and purple tearaway clothing. What do you got going on?
You shouldn't be curious at all. It's basic black trunks. It's not. It's nothing. It's black. I'm sorry. I can see how let down you are. So don't. Sorry, get your hopes up for that one.
Oh God, you have been a joy, my friend. This has been amazing. And again, I know I've said thank you probably 18 million times, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you so much. We had a blast. Can't wait for the follow-up.
Yeah, definitely.
This was Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid. And a guy that I thought was Sully before I hit the record button, my man, the American Hammer, Dan Terry.
Thank you for having me.